Doesn't matter what meta agent you play, doesn't matter how well you aim. If you don't develop your game sense in Valorant, you will stagnate and will be stuck in a rank never able to climb. That being said, in this video, we're going to improve your game sense in just 8 minutes flat. But you might be wondering, what does having good game sense enable you to do? Well, there's 3 core things that game sense allows you to do. Number 1, read the flow of the game. Understand what is going to happen at what interval, not be lost in a sea of random things happening, but have a understanding of the pattern and flow of how a round will play out. Second off is you'll be able to predict enemies, understand their ideas and their thought patterns. How are they going to play a certain situation? How are they going to peek? How are they going to press? What abilities are they going to use? The better you can predict your enemies, the easier it will be to completely shut them down. And most importantly, good game sense will keep you one step ahead of everyone. You'll be just a little bit faster, a little bit quicker, and able to rack up kills, and the enemies could do nothing about it. So how does one go about developing their game sense? Well, the first thing you need to do is consider every factor. Think of Valorant as a puzzle to solve, and the more bits of information that you have, the easier it is to put the pieces together. So every single factor, every single bit of information is something you should take note of and think about how that affects the game itself. So as an example, you look at a composition and you see that they have no breakable utility for your cipher trips. They're gonna have a really hard time going in, pushing into your site, and breaking your trips that are behind the corner on Sunset. This means that if they go to your site, it's gonna be a lot easier to shut them down, and you need to be ready to play off your trips, and they're more likely to go to other sites because they don't have a way to deal with your trips very easily. So that's one example of how them having certain abilities can change how you position and how you play, and this is true no matter what you're up against. Like, if you're up against characters that have a lot of flashes, playing open corners without natural cover is a lot riskier. You want to play an off angle as Reyna and potentially get a kill and run away, so you're playing a little bit in the open, but the enemies are playing Phoenix and KO. Every single corner, they're going to run up to it and flash it. But let's say they don't have that. Let's say they have a Killjoy and they have a freaking Sage. Well, now playing that off angle is going to be a lot more powerful because you're not going to get punished for it. See how every single ability someone has changes how you can approach and play every single situation. Now, the thing about it is, when you start to go even further than this, you can start to predict what the enemies are doing, how they're going to play, and almost see them through walls. And that's where the SkillCapped wall hacks course comes in. We're going to teach you exactly how to think like a pro and predict enemy patterns so that you know exactly where they're going to be, where they're going to plant, and how you can set up a play to shut them down. Check it out right now in the links down below, because if you don't climb, you don't pay. Check out our money back guarantee, and we'll see you there. Now, when we consider every factor, we're also going to consider things like weapons and armor. Knowing what tools an enemy could possibly have can change the way you play. Like, I'm not gonna blind peek C long on Haven if I know they can afford an op and they have characters that actually utilize ops well. I'm gonna jiggle peek it, I'm gonna use utility, and I'm gonna be ready to potentially trade out my teammates if they die to an op. If I'm on eco, I'm gonna play around certain corners and cubbies because they might have a shotgun, and I'm gonna make extra sure that I utilize my abilities to clear close spaces in every single corner. By considering every one of these factors, you're changing and altering your play based on information, and that is what the building blocks of good game sense is. Knowing that if you're standing in U-Haul and the enemy Brimstone has ult, you could be ulted and you need to be ready to move and not put yourself in a position where you're flushed to the front of it and potentially killed for free. Now, of course, you're not going to be able to predict everything, and sometimes people are going to do things that really don't line up with what it should, right? People are going to have abilities and not use them, or they're going to have the ability to buy certain weapons and not buy them. And people act in very random ways that you can't always predict. But typically, the strongest thing is the thing that you best need to play around. The strongest, most powerful thing your opponents could do, the best thing they could do that you would have a hard time dealing with unless you specifically predicted it or played around it, because all the other stuff you might be able to just deal with your solid raw play. And there's so many micro decisions that add up where if you can give yourself a little bit of an advantage in every single peak situation, the way that you challenge, the way that you play, you can add that up to more and more round wins. Now, while you might have some amount of understanding, it's important to not try to play around everything. This is an important aspect of game sense where you only play around what you can. Now, what does this actually mean? Well, you gotta understand that there's an opportunity cost to every single thing. You walk onto site and the spike is ticking down, and you don't have much time to defuse. You need to play in the way that makes it winnable. You need to play in the way that gives you the best chance of winning overall. Now, this doesn't mean that you can slow walk around and clear every single angle because an enemy might be there, but this also means that you have to do things and make an educated guess in some ways. You might smoke off the spike and tap and make an educated guess of where the enemy is, or you might not have a smoke and you might have to just tap it and hold a certain angle where you take every bit of your prior information and you utilize that to predict where the enemy might be. Now, you're not always going to be right in these situations, but it's important to play around what you can and not play around what you can't. In some situations, you can't predict everything. You don't have the time to clear everything. You don't have the capability to prepare for every single situation. And the thing about it is, the right decision at the wrong time is often the wrong decision. And always keep in the back of your mind that the goal is to win. So as an example, let's say you're playing post plant in a 1v1 and the enemy doesn't really know where you are. Your goal here is to make it so that they do not have enough time to defuse. It's not about running out and one-tapping an enemy. It's not even about getting the kill. It's about ensuring that the enemy is put in a lose-lose scenario. Understanding that it's your job to make it so that the enemy can't defuse, it's not your job to pop off and get a kill. That is not your win condition. And thinking about and understanding win conditions is going to allow you to make better decisions throughout the course of your game. Now, ultimately, you got to understand that adapting and learning is key. Gamesense isn't going to be something you're born with, and it's going to be developed over time with experience and reflection. And that's an incredibly important part of getting better game sense, is not allowing any death, any teaching moment throughout your games to become white noise that you brush past. Every single scenario that you're playing through, all the variables, all the things you played around, all the things you didn't, that's information that you can take from one game to the next. And of course, we don't expect you to be able to constantly learn these things instantly, right? But every game we play, we get one step closer to making that read, being aggressive and confident with our reads. And my best piece of suggestion, especially when you're trying to make reads and predict enemy behavior, try to commit to your decision, even if there's a chance it's wrong, because there's always going to be a chance that your decision is wrong. But the thing that is hard to learn from is something that is lukewarm. If you make a 55% decision instead of a yes or no, then what was the lesson here? You should have made it slightly more of a yes, slightly more of a no. It's oftentimes easier to truly learn and actually receive a big takeaway if you make committed and confident decisions in your own plays and predictions. Now, a lot like AIM, Gamesense is a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to take a while for you to develop this game sense, but hopefully some of these things can help you further develop it. And from here, the sky is the limit for your gameplay. So good luck in the games. You got this. And definitely check out the SkillCapped website if you want to climb right here. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.